Welcome to IVF This, episode 108, Worry Stacking. Welcome to IVF This. I'm your host, Emily Ginn. After 10 years of primary and secondary infertility due to both male and female factor infertility, I am now the mother to 3 beautiful miracles. I am married to my favorite person in the world. I'm a social worker, a life coach, and an IVF warrior. I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and emotions during your IVF journey, to break free from anxiety and regain control of your life, even in the midst of infertility. I'm going to teach you how to say IVF this to how we think about, talk about, and experience infertility. Let's go. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you are all doing so well today. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you guys of my open coaching call that I do every single month. This month will be Tuesday, March 21st at 1 p.m. Central, so 2 p.m. Eastern. It's typically the second Tuesday of the month, but I'll be out of town, so we pushed it back. I've had a lot of people mention that they kind of want to join the calls, but don't because they feel like there's going to be a lot of people or anything like that. And I got to give you some full transparency. This is only like the 4th or 5th, maybe, coaching call that I've done. It's still kind of a secret. Like there aren't a lot of people that come, a handful at most. I've actually had a really beautiful opportunity to coach a lot of women on those calls because it has been so intimate. So we can really get into more specific information, or at least you get a one-on-one coaching experience. So if you're holding yourself back from going on those calls and you really want to, let me reassure you that almost everyone listening is probably thinking the same thing as you are, is like, oh, it's going to be so many people. There's not that many people right now. It's okay. This is part of building this community, building this process. So come hang out with me. I hope that sounded more inviting than desperate. It was very much more inviting. But honestly, these calls are so new, relatively speaking. So come benefit from the newness, from the relative obscurity of these. So, and of course, as always, I still offer the mini sessions, which are like one-on-one, very specific to what you need. You get all of the intimate coaching experience on your time to talk specifically about what you need. So those are always available. So to get the email notification of my coaching calls, my open coaching calls, you can either go to my website, www.ivfthiscoaching.com, and click on the option to sign up for the newsletter, or you can go to either my Instagram or Facebook pages, and there's a link in my bio to sign up for the newsletter. But you can also get the link for the open coaching call in there, in that bio, so that you can copy and paste the link into your calendar. It's the same link every single month. So you can just add that as a recurring calendar item if that would work better for you. All right, let's talk about worry stacking. So I'm going to explain what worry stacking is, why we do it, and how to break the cycle. Worry stacking is exactly as it sounds, stacking worry upon worry. Some people might refer to it as a thought spiral. I want you to think of it however it makes sense to you, right? Whatever term you like to use, as long as it makes sense, as long as you can understand it, that's perfect. I like worry stacking because I like the visualization of stacking one worry on top of the other until the stack kind of topples over. If you prefer spiral, that's beautiful too. No right or wrong here. People in general experience anxiety. It's a universal experience for most everyone. And you can experience anxiety without it being some sort of pathology like generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, phobias, PTSD, social anxiety. Like you can be someone who experiences anxiety without having or needing a diagnosis. You all know that I like to keep things real when we talk about these things, because when you hyper pathologize or you try to give a diagnosis to everything, we are, one, causing ourselves needless pain by assigning this diagnosis when for many people and in many cultures, mental health is still very stigmatized. And two, we kind of minimize the genuine experience of those suffering from these disorders. All right, so that's my anxiety cautionary tale. That's the I will not belabor that point. But to understand anxiety and worry, and just so you know, I will be using those two words interchangeably because we're not talking about a formal diagnosis, right? So to understand worry and anxiety, we have to remember that worry anxiety is what we refer to as a biopsychosocial experience. Okay. This is a very long, ridiculous sounding word that means that we experience it in our thinking, we experience it in our bodies, and then that ripples out into our social behavior, right? So, in addition, our ideas around anxiety are formed by our socialization, by our belief systems. For instance, if you grew up in a chaotic home, you might not know what it's like to not experience anxiety. Or when you do experience calm, then you kind of start spinning a story around what terrible thing is about to happen, or I shouldn't feel so calm, what's about to go wrong. And then you start to experience panic. There's a word for it. It's called calm induced panic. And yes, it's really a thing that many people experience. But if you grew up with parents or caregivers that struggled with anxiety themselves and therefore projected their anxieties onto you, you might still be unknowingly and unconsciously perpetuating this cycle. Now, the reason that we describe our anxiety producing thoughts as stacking or as a spiral, because these types of thoughts have a very powerful feedback loop that is reinforced with every worry that is stacked or every turn of the spiral. The reason that the feedback loop is so easily reinforced is because our brains have been trained, have evolved to look for danger. That's what our brains spend most of their time doing, is scanning the environment, looking for potential danger, and then reporting it back, right? Like a good soldier. Your brain genuinely, and I want to make sure that you understand this, your brain thinks it's being helpful. If you are in a situation where you're experiencing a lot of anxiety, what is happening is that those thoughts in your brain are then triggering the natural biological fight or flight mechanisms, which cause more anxiety. This is because those abstract thoughts that you're thinking are converted in your brain. All of this is happening inside your brain and inside your body, right? Those abstract thoughts are being converted into literal physical events that are triggering your body's hormonal system. Your body is responding to these threats that are created in your mind as if they were real imminent danger. The body's alert system, the hormonal system, your body's glands release adrenaline and cortisol, which activate the sympathetic nervous system and result in a range of bodily sensations. And here's where worry stacking or worry spiral, whatever you want to call it, can grab a hold and start reinforcing itself. Being hyper aware of these sensations, despite no actual danger being present, the body and mind may actually begin to panic, to increase their worry, increase its anxiety about the physical sensations that you are experiencing themselves. Physiologically, this is called being in a state of hyperarousal, right? So think about when you have had a transfer and you have all of these thoughts swimming in your head about it. It's not going to work. And then you start feeling a twinge. You're hyper aware of what is happening inside your body. This is the exact same thing. You're using your brain for the exact same thing, except it's causing more anxiety for you to be so hyper aware of the physical sensations you're experiencing when you experience anxiety. The fight or flight response would ordinarily cause someone to take self-preserving action in the face of a threat, right? Like running away. That's one of the primary focuses of fight or flight, or shutting down, like laying down to avoid danger, right? But with worry and anxiety, there's no threat. Like there's no physical threat. There's no place to run. So in essence, the sensations themselves are actually causing triggers to create more panic, to create more worry, to create more anxiety. More hormones are then released, accompanied by additional catastrophic thinking that tries to frame and explain intellectually what feeling you're experiencing, right? But they're two different functions, right? Your brain is thinking things, your body is feeling things, then your brain starts to get involved in what your body is experiencing, and your body's trying to intellectualize what's happening, right? That's why it feels so terrible. What begins as a thought is interpreted by your brain, which then sends a signal to the physical body, which responds biologically in ways that confirm and compound the original anxious thought. Whew, that was a lot. So we get to kind of a breaking point, like a panic attack or something. And sometimes that can feel a little bit like relief. Like once you're on the other side of that, you can feel a little bit of relief. But the cycle still continues and can continue long term because your body and your mind have now strengthened in this false belief that certain thoughts, feelings, and sensations are something to be feared. In the case of like social anxiety or phobias, a person might deliberately alter their behavior in response to this stacking of worries or this spiral. For example, avoiding people, situations, or places that have possibly triggered your anxiety in the past. Very, very often, since we are neither taught about our emotions nor how to process them when they do inevitably come, we're often not giving ourselves enough downtime between these stacks or these spirals. So it's like stacks on stacks on stacks on stacks, right? We don't allow ourselves space to process one experience of anxiety or worry or something like that before the next one comes, right? So it feels like one continuous, unrelenting cycle. So, how do we stop? How do we stop or slow down the stacking or the spiral? It's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. Remember when I said earlier that this is a biopsychosocial process? That means that we need a biopsychosocial response. We can't only focus on our thoughts because then we're forgetting about our bodies. And our bodies are where all of this is taking place. So I'm going to offer you 4 things that you can do to help stop or slow down the stack. Number 1, first and foremost, and hear me when I say this. Don't skip this part. Breathe. Breathe. And I know it seems obnoxiously simple instruction, but breathe, darling, breathe. One of the physiological responses to anxiety is that your pulse will quicken, your chest may tighten, your breathing will be shallow and quickened. So breathe. There are several breathing techniques that you can employ. There's box breathing, which is breathing in slowly for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4, and then holding for a count of 4 before you repeat the box, right? If you were to visualize it, you're actually doing the 4 sides of a box. It's a beautiful system. Many people enjoy it. Many people utilize that to help ground them. Another one is that you can trace your finger, right? Meaning that as you trace your hand, you breathe in as you're tracing up your finger and breathe out as you're tracing down. And then you repeat for each finger on hand, and you can do 2 hands, you can do your toes, it doesn't matter, right? One of my favorite go-tos is a breathing visualization that I do. I envision that I am breathing in pure white light and exhaling dark smoke. So I will associate a neutral or positive, either one, emotion with the white light and whatever emotion I am processing through as the black smoke. So if I'm feeling anxious, I'll repeat something to myself like, I am breathing in safety or calm, whatever word works best for you. It doesn't matter. I am breathing in safety in the form of pure white light, and I am exhaling fear or anxiety in the form of dark smoke. So I actually love this visualization the most because it helps me stay focused on my breathing by imagining the image of the white light and the black smoke. There's not one way to do this. There are multiple ways to do this. I actually use Pinterest a lot when I'm helping my clients. We're kind of brainstorming what might be the most beneficial thing for them. So figuring out what works for you is almost as important as using it. Okay. Number 2, stay in your time zone. I heard it phrased this way, which is literally just an idea of being present, but I heard it phrased this way. I can't remember who said it, but I absolutely love this idea and the way it's phrased, right? You've heard me talk about mindfulness and staying present in the moment, and that's what stay in your time zone is referring to. Anxiety, in its truest form, is a future-focused state of mind. You're trying to forecast or plan or fortune tell the future as a means of limiting, mitigating, or eliminating possible future pain. But because you can't actually do that, you're making yourself miserable in the current moment. There's a couple of thoughts that I turn to keep myself in the moment, to keep myself present. One is if I'm receiving news or awaiting news or something, like I don't have enough information to freak out about this yet. I like this because it acknowledges that there might be something potentially scary on the horizon, but that I don't have enough information to intentionally, that's the key, intentionally decide how I want to think about it yet. And the second one is, what is for me will never miss me. I use this one all the time, especially when I'm experiencing like the fear of missing out or comparing myself to someone else or thinking that I should be in a different place or that I should have a different opportunity or something like that. These are thoughts that work for me. I practice them, but I want you to think about other ones that might work for you. If these work for you, beautiful. You don't have to do that much work. But if they don't work for you, if you don't feel a sense of calmness or a sense of presence when you think them, that's fine. You can cultivate that literally just by doing a little bit of journaling, figuring out what is going to work to help keep you present. No right or wrongs here, right? Take what works for you, leave what doesn't. Number 3, relabeling what is happening. Anxiety and worry can often feel so intense that it makes us feel like we're dying or having a heart attack or something like this. So remind yourself, I'm experiencing anxiety. It is harmless, it is temporary, and there's nothing that I need to do but sit with it. It might also help to keep in mind that what's happening in your body is actually the opposite sign of impending death. Your body is activating its fight or flight response, the system that is designed to keep you alive. So that might work for you. It might not. That's fine. But I like to think of it sometimes as like, hey, my body is actually, I know it feels terrible, but it's actually trying to help me stay alive. The fourth one is fact check those thoughts. In cognitive behavioral therapy, in CBT, we refer to this as logic testing. People with anxiety can often fixate on kind of the worst case scenarios, that catastrophizing that I've talked about. To combat these worries, I want you to just question how realistic they are. When you're expecting news from your clinic and we start forecasting all the terrible things to come and your brain offers you, this will never work or something in that vein, remind yourself, I'm hurting and I'm scared and I know it feels hopeless, whatever emotion it is, but that doesn't mean that the situation itself is hopeless, right? I don't have enough information to freak out about this yet. We don't have the result, right? The outcome to know actually what's going on. A non-IVF example, say you're nervous about a big presentation at work, and rather than think, I'm going to bomb, this is going to be shit, right? Whatever, maybe you tell yourself, I am nervous, but I'm prepared. Some things will go well and some may not, right? Getting into a pattern of rethinking your fears helps train your brain to come up with a rational way to deal with your anxious thoughts. Okay, those are 4 ways to stop the worry stack, stop the spiral, however you want to refer to it. It's totally fine. You are not at the mercy of your brain. Your brain is not the enemy. Your body is not the enemy. You probably have never been taught how to manage your mind, how to talk to yourself more than listen to yourself, how to create safety in your body so that your body can allow itself to feel and experience emotions instead of shoving them down, which is what most of us are taught. This is a beautiful place to start that process if you're new here. And it's a wonderful way to continue your mindfulness and self-coaching practice if you've been here for a while. Okay, that is what I have for you today, my friends. I hope you have a beautiful week and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.